Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well and ready to improve your English with another beautiful story. My name is Emma, and today, I want to tell you something very personal, something that changed my life forever. This is the story of the day he proposed to me, and the reason why I had to say no. You know how people say you'll just know when it's love? That moment when everything clicks, when it finally feels right. Well, I thought I knew too, until the day he proposed. And I said no. But before you judge me, let me take you back to how it all started. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the sky looks tired and your mood matches it perfectly. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop pretending to read a book, but mostly just staring at people. That's when I saw him. The guy with the blue hoodie, messy hair, and the kind of smile that makes you forget what page you were on. He looked lost, not in a sad way, more like in thought. He ordered black coffee, sat near the window, and started sketching something in his notebook. I don't know why, but I kept glancing at him. And every time I did, I caught him doing the same. You know that awkward moment when your eyes meet, and both look away like, oops? Yeah, that. About 5 times. A week later, I saw him again. Same cafe, same corner. This time he smiled first. And that smile started a story I'll never forget. He introduced himself. "I'm Daniel," he said, reaching out his hand. I remember how warm it felt, even though it was freezing outside. We talked for hours that day. About books, dreams, fears, life, even our worst childhood memories. He made me laugh like I hadn't in years. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, someone truly saw me. Days turned into weeks, and soon, the cafe wasn't just a place for coffee. It became our place. We'd sit there for hours, sharing stories, teasing each other, and watching rain paint the glass. He was kind. The kind of guy who'd walk on the outer side of the road, who'd remember tiny details, like how I hated loud chewing sounds or that I loved stars but feared the dark. And slowly I fell for him. But love isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's a circle. And sometimes it's a storm. We started arguing. Not big fights. Just small ones that left invisible cracks. He wanted everything planned. Every goal, every step, every future move. I was more spontaneous. He wanted control. I wanted freedom. Still, we stayed together. Because love, at that time, felt enough. At least, that's what I thought. Then came the night of my birthday. He told me to dress nice. Just something simple, he said, smiling in that secretive way. We drove to a quiet hill just outside the city. The view was magical. The city lights below, the cold breeze, the smell of rain in the air. I turned to say something, but when I looked at him, he was already kneeling. With a ring. I froze. My heart didn't race, it stopped. He looked at me, eyes full of hope, and said softly, "You're everything I've ever wanted. Will you marry me?" And in that second, my world went silent. Not because I didn't love him, but because deep down I knew. I wasn't ready. I loved him. I really did. But saying yes would have been a lie. Not to him, but to myself. So I took a deep breath, tears in my eyes, and said the words that broke both of us. "I'm sorry, Daniel, but I can't." The silence that followed my answer was louder than any scream. Daniel just stared at me, like he was trying to understand if I was joking. But I wasn't. His smile faded, the light in his eyes gone. For a few seconds he didn't say a word, and I wished he would, because silence hurts more than anger. He slowly stood up, still holding the ring. The same hands that once held mine so tightly now didn't move at all. The breeze picked up. The city lights below flickered, and between us nothing. He finally whispered, "Why?" That one word shattered me, because there wasn't a simple answer. I said quietly, "Daniel, I love you, but not enough to promise forever." He looked confused, hurt, and I don't blame him. Who wouldn't be? He said, "So what was all this? Were you just passing time?" I shook my head quickly, tears already falling. "No. You were real. You are real. But I'm still trying to figure out me. If I say yes now, it wouldn't be fair to you." He turned away, staring at the sky, trying not to cry. Because that's what strong men do, right? Pretend it doesn't hurt. He said softly, "I thought I was your home. I took a step closer and whispered, "You are. But I need to know what kind of person I am before I move in." And just like that, the rain started falling again. We sat in the car on the way back in silence. Every song on the radio felt like it was mocking us. Every traffic light took forever to turn green. He didn't drop me home that night. He just stopped the car near my street, looked at me once, and said quietly, "Take care of yourself. That's it. No gudvie. No kloucher. Just take care." It's funny how the same person who once texted you every morning can vanish without a word. The first few days after that were blurry. I replayed that night in my head 1,000 times, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. My friends said I was crazy. My mom said I was scared of commitment. Maybe they were right. But my heart kept whispering something else. That love should feel like peace, not pressure. Weeks turned into months. I stopped going to the cafe. Even coffee didn't taste the same anymore. Then one day I got an email. From him. No subject line. Just one sentence. "I hope you found what you were looking for." I stared at it for minutes. Then closed my laptop without replying. Because I didn't know what to say. Maybe I still don't. But life goes on, right? We learn. We heal. And sometimes, we find meaning in the moments we once regretted. I started journaling every day. At first, it was just sadness. Pages filled with "I miss you" and "I'm sorry." But over time, the words changed. From "I miss him" to "I understand myself better now." That's when I realized. Maybe saying no wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was the first honest thing I'd done for both of us. Love doesn't always end in weddings. Sometimes it ends in growth. Sometimes in distance. And sometimes in peace. Because saying no to someone else can mean saying yes to yourself. They say time heals everything. But what they don't tell you is, it also teaches you who you really are. A few months had passed since that night. The nights stopped feeling heavy, and mornings started feeling normal again. I got busy with work, met new people, and started doing things alone. Things I used to wait for him to do with me. It was strange at first. Eating alone, watching movies alone, walking home alone. But little by little, I realized I wasn't lonely. I was learning to enjoy my own company. Soft city sounds fade in, footsteps, street noise. Every Friday, I'd visit a small park near my office. It wasn't anything fancy, just a quiet corner with a bench under an old oak tree. I'd sit there during lunch breaks, sometimes reading, sometimes just watching people live their lives. That's where I met Mrs. Turner, an old lady who fed pigeons every day. She was probably in her 70s, but her eyes sparkled like she still had secrets to tell. One afternoon, she sat beside me and said, "You always look like you're waiting for something." I laughed and said, "Maybe I am." She smiled. "I waited my whole life for my husband to apologize for forgetting our anniversary in 1978. Pauses, then chuckles. "He never did." We both laughed. But then she looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Don't wait for someone to complete you, dear. You'll waste years trying to fill a space that only you can fill." Soft pause, sound of birds chirping. That one sentence hit me harder than any heartbreak. Because deep down, that's what I had been doing all along. Waiting for someone to make me feel whole. But life doesn't work that way. You become whole by understanding yourself. Your fears, your dreams, your limits. So I started doing just that. I joined a weekend art class. At first, my sketches were terrible, like a 5-year-old's doodles. But my teacher said something funny. 2 years passed. 2 years of lessons, healing, and quiet growth. I wasn't the same girl who said no that night. I had learned to make my own decisions, chase my own dreams, and most importantly, be at peace with my past. Love was no longer something I was looking for. It was something I was becoming. One spring afternoon, I went to a friend's wedding. The kind with fairy lights, laughter, and a playlist full of memories. Everyone looked beautiful. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel out of place in a room full of love stories. I was standing near the buffet table, balancing my plate like a professional, when I heard a voice behind me. "Still hate olives?" I froze. That voice. I'd know it anywhere. I turned. And there he was. Daniel. He looked different, calmer, more mature. But the same kindness in his eyes was still there. He smiled, just like the first day in the cafe, and said, "Hey." I tried to sound casual. "Hey. It's been what? 2 years." He nodded. "Yeah. You look happy." And I was. Truly. But hearing it from him felt like a chapter finally closing itself. We ended up sitting outside, near the fairy lights, talking like old friends who had once known every corner of each other's hearts. He told me he had moved to another city, started his own design studio, and even traveled alone for the first time, to the same hill where he once proposed. I laughed softly. "You really went back there?" He nodded. "Yeah. I wanted to see it again without the sadness." And surprisingly, it felt peaceful. It was strange, sitting beside the same man, feeling no pain, no regret, just quiet understanding. We had both changed. We had both grown. And somehow, that felt more beautiful than any forever we once dreamed of. Then, he said something that stayed with me. "You know, that night, I thought you ruined my life. But now I realize you saved it." I blinked, speechless. He continued, "If you'd said yes, we might have spent years trying to fix something that wasn't ready. I wasn't the man I wanted to be. And I'm glad you were brave enough to say no." I smiled, tears in my eyes. "Funny. I used to think I broke your heart." He chuckled. "You did. But you also helped it grow back stronger." We talked until the lights started dimming, and people began leaving. Before we parted, he looked at me one last time and said, "Take care of yourself again." And this time, those same words didn't hurt. They healed. I watched him walk away, and realized closure isn't about getting back together. It's about understanding why you fell apart. That night I didn't cry. I smiled. Because some stories don't end with, and they lived happily ever after. Some end with, and they finally understood why. From that day on, I carried no bitterness, no what-ifs, no unspoken goodbyes. Just gratitude. For a love that taught me honesty. For a heartbreak that taught me courage. And for a man who taught me that saying no can sometimes be the most loving thing you do. Because love isn't about owning someone. It's about wishing them peace, even when their peace doesn't include you. A few days after that wedding, I woke up to an email from Daniel. No subject line. Just a few words inside. "Thank you for letting me become who I am today." And a photo attached. The hill where he once proposed. This time, there was no ring, no flowers, no nervous smile. Just sunlight, peace, and him standing alone, finally free. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because sometimes silence is the most honest answer. Some goodbyes aren't meant to be spoken. They're meant to be felt. Months passed. I continued with my life. New job, new city, new dreams. But every once in a while, when I'd pass by a cafe that smelled like cinnamon and coffee, either's Mila. Because that's where it all began. A boy with messy hair. A girl with too many questions. And a story that didn't end in forever, but ended beautifully anyway. I used to think love was about holding on. Now I know it's also about letting go. Letting go of who you were. Letting go of what you expected. And letting life write its own version of the ending. One evening, while watching the sunset from my apartment balcony, I found myself whispering, "I hope you're happy, Daniel." And for the first time, I truly meant it. No pain. No regret. Just peace. Because love stories aren't always about ending up together. Some are about growing apart beautifully. Two souls who met to teach each other. Not to stay, but to change. Years later, I saw a photo on social media. Daniel was standing next to a woman, smiling, glowing. It was his wedding. And guess what? I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I just whispered. Finally. Because that's the thing about true love. You want their happiness, even if it's not with you. Sometimes, goodbye isn't the end of the story. It's the start of a new chapter. For both hearts. He found his peace. I found mine. And that's all the closure we ever needed. So if you ever have to say no, say it with love. Because one day, you'll look back and realize that saying no was the most honest way of saying, I cared.